What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Soul Hoops. My name is Jeffrey, and I'm joined by Mattias. As you can see, we only have two rocking today. If you guys didn't see Ryan's video posted earlier this week, go give that a watch. He is on vacation, so we're letting him enjoy his trip, not forcing him to do any extra work. But how are you doing today, Mattias?
I'm doing good. I'm actually excited. Ryan's in town. He's in Florida
Yeah.
right now, so I'm gonna get to see him tomorrow. I'm gonna
Yep.
play some one-on-one. Hopefully, get some content for the channel. It'll be fun.
Yes, sir. Mattias and Ryan will be, dueling off tomorrow, so keep your eyes out for that. Ryan is currently becoming in love with the Pacific Northwest.
Yeah,
He'll keep us updated on his potential love affair with that with the
it
region.
happens, man. It
Yeah, it
happens.
is a beautiful area.
Yeah,
Awesome. Well, we got a couple things on the video for on our agenda today. We're not going to be doing too much. Keep it simple. We're gonna be skipping a week for our lists of positional players. We're gonna wait till Ryan gets back next week to resume with small forwards. Just because that's a little bit bigger of content, longer episode. So we're going to be skipping, and me and Mattias are just going to kind of go through some stuff that's been going on in our head regarding basketball over the last week or so. First little piece of news is that the Charlotte Hornets sale was officially approved by the Board of Governors. The new ownership group has taken over the majority stake, and they'll be able to bring in their new advisors and all that stuff. So that's exciting for that franchise.
yeah. It could be exciting, but also I think it can be scary because they're a young team that has had ups and downs, and they're bringing in a question mark in Miles Bridges again.
Yeah.
And new owners like to put pressure to make big moves or new moves, and they like to have their own new regimen a lot, like get what the players they envision, because a lot of these guys have different theories on the sport, and they're at a spot where they can either turn this rebuild successful and push for a playoff spot. They've shown they can be a playing team, but they're at the time where they could also fuck it up and be in the rebuild for another half decade plus.
Yeah, I think anytime you have a sale of an ownership group from transferring ownership groups, especially for a team that's at such an interesting crossroads like the Charlotte Hornets, like they're in a very interesting place. They have pieces that they could be good, but they're very spotty injury wise, and they've also had issues coming around with, off the court issues with Miles Bridges and James Bouknight last year, and a lot of stuff that was going on last year, as well as coaching comments and leaks from ownership groups. Like this very weird vibe, and I think the new ownership group can either take it in the right way, or it could also be like, yeah, we don't want to deal with this anymore. Like we're restarting. We're gonna build around in our vision of how we want the basketball team to be built. So
I do think no matter what, a ball is obviously safe, but I would not be surprised if the rest of the roster is reconstructed.
okay, yeah, I definitely agree. Even that, even with LaMelo, if it was really bad, I could see them in a year or two maybe saying all right, well, we drafted Brandon Miller 2 years ago, and I think in that case, if that was what it to become to, it'd be like Brandon Miller did not develop, and it was very shaky for him. So hopefully that's not the case, because I hope obviously anyone that gets drafted in the NBA, I always will root for unless you did something atrocious. So I mean, well, Brandon Miller did have the.
I think there's a chance that it can flip on the other side of the coin and be like almost a Mavs situation. Dennis Smith Jr. had a really good rookie year.
Yeah.
And you could even say LaMelo has had a really good beginning of his career, but he showed injury issues, and maybe they get a draft pick that just pops early, and they're like, we got Brandon Miller fits better off ball, like something just roster construction wise, it forces their hand to let go of LaMelo. And that's really only if the injuries become an issue, which is a big question mark on his career right now.
Yeah, I mean, they have an interesting roster though, around those guys. I mean, there's some good vet pieces. Terry Rozier's a good piece. Gordon Hayward can be a good piece when he's healthy. Also, I'm really high on Mark Williams' development and that whole thing. And so, hopefully that they can continue and work together. I think it'd be intriguing to see maybe if after this season, depending where they land, maybe the ownership group does decide to go with more of a youth movement and trade away like a Terry Rozier to get that contract off once it has 1 year left. Gordon Hayward has 2 years left, so after this year it'll only be an expiring contract. But they're still productive players that contenders could maybe say, "Hey,
Oh
we want to throw in 3 of our mid-level role players that are all making 8 to 10 million to get like a $30 million contract in Gordon Hayward and be like, all right, we're gonna cut a little bit of our depth to get a higher level player overall in the system." So I think that'd
yeah,
be an intriguing
and that's also like
process.
a move that kind of bottoms them out to not necessarily like be a playoff contender and lets them hang out in the lottery a bit and build more to that youth movement. I wouldn't mind that. I'm also curious. PJ Washington's still free agent.
Yes, that's a big thing. I really hope he goes back there. I mean, he was really good last year.
Yeah.
Like
So
really good.
ownership could have a. It seemed like the current ownership either didn't want to make a move because they were planning on selling it, or wasn't interested in bringing PJ Washington back. So now that opens up the possibility of PJ Washington's resigning.
Yeah, I mean, wherever PJ Washington goes, like if a really good team, like a contender can get PJ Washington in a sign-in trade, like that is huge. Like he is really good as a
He's
Swiss
just,
Army knife guy. Like it's
oh,
awesome.
dude, I love watching PJ Washington.
Yeah.
He was. They played a game of Portland. I can't remember if it was this year or last year, but and he just played so well. And it's just like he's one of those players where he might not always be on because like he's not like. So
Yeah.
I don't think he's like a young star or whatever, but he's just so solid. And when he gets hot, his game is so smooth.
He like his ability to like play both sides of the ball and like his multifaceted like ability to play multiple roles on offense is awesome. Like he can handle the ball, he can run the dribble handoff, he can run the pick and roll, he can shoot a little bit, he can create for himself at some rate as well, and he's obviously got a little bit bigger of a frame, so the post game has always been somewhat there as
Yeah.
being able to get to the rim. So
And
yeah,
he's athletic, so he can really, I think he can keep up on the defensive side as well.
yeah,
Like, I don't think he really struggles too much.
I've explored obviously because in the off season when you get bored, you start playing with the trade finder and seeing how contracts match up. And I would be super excited if like I was looking at like the Bucks and Bucks trades, playing around at it, and you could trade, maybe 2 of our bench contracts, Grayson Allen, Pat Connaughton. That's about 15 million if to get a fit in a side and trade, and maybe throw
Yeah.
a protected first, a future first, and that would be that would be it. And I was like, that would be an awesome pickup for us.
Yeah.
But
PJ Washington's one of those players where everyone wants him on their team. Like
yeah,
he's just he fits well in every system. I hate the term, but he's portable.
yeah, that's an interesting term. I've been seeing that a lot. I've been evaluating I've been thinking about what that term portable means because I think it could be taken in multiple ways. I think it could be like when you talk about portability, I guess, for like a role player, it's like how many different teams and systems can they fit in without like diminishing their value. And then I think
Yeah.
for like a superstar, it's like like how like
Versatile
high
is his.
versatile their play style is to work with different players and schemes.
Yeah.
So
It's like
like
do they make the role players' lives easier, and can they play with a guy that's a catch and shoot guy and also a guy that's more of a slasher,
yeah,
or can they only play with a catch and shoot?
yeah, that's interesting. And I think, that's actually an interesting term to evaluate because I think it's also a lot of like coaching on like how coaches allow their superstars or star players in general to open up the game in different facets, like how open their mind is to different styles of
Mm-hmm.
offense or defense. As a Bucks fan, having to deal with Budenholzer over the last 5 years, like he was so strict on like how he wanted to run the offense and the defense. No matter what, we're gonna play drop coverage, help side drop coverage every single defensive possession, and on offense, it's driving kick
God,
every single
dude,
time.
I'm really glad scheme versatility is kind of coming back a bit, both
Yes.
defensively and
Yes.
offensively. Like some teams, the Blazers are still very heavy pick and roll, but even them,
Well, every team's
they were even taking Dame off ball a little bit, and that shouldn't happen. Like,
yeah.
but like it's refreshing to watch because it's really tiring to watch the same thing over and over again.
Yeah, I've been very refreshed. Obviously, for the first time in a while, for like with the Bucks, I've had to evaluate what our scheme is going to look like in the regular season. Like, I have no idea what this team's going to look like with how they play. Obviously, you're probably going to see a lot of the same stuff because of the personality. I mean, they have Giannis, so
Yeah,
driving kick is going to be it. But I mean, like defensively, like we're going to be running like a lot of switch. We're going to be running zone more, which we
you
have.
guys
We have
should. You guys are so lengthy and
Yeah, we
athletic.
have good zone players. Like running like a good zone with Brooke Lopez as your paint zone protector is like
Brooke,
nuts.
Brooke in the paint. You could have Giannis on one of the weak sides, and then
Yeah,
you got length in like Bobby Portis. Like he's not the best
yeah.
defender, but you just
But I'm actually hopeful for Bobby's defense this year. I think he'll do much better in a switch heavy scheme compared
yeah,
to a drop scheme because
I agree.
he isn't a super like he's not super big and he's also not super athletic.
No, he's not a
So
vertical threat.
like
I think he can keep up laterally though
yes, his
to an
lateral
extent.
movement is good, but like it's like he can't run the drop coverage role as the 5 when he's running those small ball lineups with Giannis at the 4 and him at the 5 because he can't play
Yeah,
drop because he can't contest the shots.
no,
So it just makes him look way worse. So I'm looking
yeah,
forward. And Terry Stotts is our lead assistant, so coming from Portland, and he's a big offensive guy. So
yeah. I
that'll be
will say
intriguing.
he is a Budenholzer though. He's from the same coaching tree, so he also loves the
Oh.
pick and roll heavy, driving kick
Well,
heavy. That's why Dame was so good here.
the Bucks didn't even run that much pick and roll. Like
I mean,
Giannis is
yeah,
like one of the lowest. Like he is like
I
one of the
feel like they
lowest
said more of
percentage
like
pick and roll players in the league, which is so
yeah.
crazy.
With Giannis, I feel like maybe it wasn't pick and rolls, but it's more of a they would set like a nail screen. Like
Yeah.
they would just get someone's hip so he could go downhill,
Hmm.
and they would just like kind of pop or they would zero out. And it
Yeah.
wasn't like a traditional pick and roll, but it's something that just because you don't want Giannis to have to go side to side. You want him to go straight downhill. But it's
Yeah.
you got to
I
create an advantage.
Yeah, I think it'll be interesting too. I mean, last year was a really weird season for the Bucks overall with how they had to play because Chris missed so much time. So like the primary like scoring ball
Giannis missed a
handler
lot
was
too.
Giannis missed like 25 games, I think, or something like that.
Yeah.
He missed a lot. So that'll be interesting, and I think eventually, I also another thing about the Bucks that happened today is actually Serge Ibaka had an interview with Shams today, talking
I
about
saw that.
his role on the team and how he was really excited to go there because it was a vet heavy team that had championship hopes and like the coaching staff is not very clear with him on what his role would be, and then he got buried on the bench and he wasn't able to play, and so he asked for a new team and they eventually waived him so he could decide he didn't get signed.
Yeah.
But I think it was very prevalent then, like with that Budenholzer was losing the locker room last year a
Yeah.
little bit, like especially from like the subtle comments. Like looking back on last year, a lot of the comments that Giannis and Brooke and all these guys are making, like in post game pressers and all that stuff, talking about, I'm just doing
Frustrations.
I'm just doing what the scheme tells me to do. I'm not going to switch what I'm doing because, I'm just going to, play
Yeah, we
my
practice
role.
this every day. Why would I not do?
Yeah.
Would I practice?
Yeah, literally. So, and I think people oftentimes in basketball discourse too disregard the fact that these players, like good players, listen to their coaches. Like they
Oh,
want to be
100%.
coached.
Yeah,
Like,
and Budenholzer, I feel like comes from the generation. He comes from a coaching tree kind of different.
yeah.
Well, right now there's a bunch of player coaches, and
Hmm.
not necessarily like there's a lot of old players who are becoming coaches, but it's
Yeah.
also player personality coaches. Like
Yeah.
they're there to really cater to all of those guys,
Hmm.
and I don't think Budenholzer does that. Like I don't think
No.
Budenholzer is as like evaluating each player individually and trying to cater his system to their
Yeah.
benefits to be a player's coach. He's just shoving these pieces into
Yeah.
his mismatched puzzle that's his scheme.
Yeah. And I think that also creates a lot of issues like all over the league for coaches that are very reluctant to switch scheme and play style from
Mm-hmm.
year to year because it really pigeonholes front offices into what types of players they can, really evaluate
Yeah.
talent as. Like for like another coach that always had that issue too was like Thibodeau. Like his scheme was so like his offensive scheme was so like archaic with like we're gonna have a pick and roll big and a ball and a slashing guard, and they're gonna dump off every time, or they're
Yeah.
gonna slash,
Oh
and
god,
then
what did Budenholzer say? Play
play random.
oh play random. Yeah.
Yeah, they'll
Same.
play
That gives
random.
you the same vibes, dude.
Oh my god, there's a clip. It's so funny. He's like sitting in the locker room. He has a big, huge board, and it literally just says like, "Play random, have fun, run." Like it's like, dude, it's
I
like,
guess you
dude.
spend so much time preparing. It's like you don't have to be redundant. These
Yeah,
guys
I
are
mean, of course. I
professionals.
mean, it's like I have to. It's just a really funny clip that people pull up whenever
Oh, because
Budenholzer
it's
gets talked
hilarious.
about.
Play random is like a middle. I feel like it's such like a middle school thing to say.
Yeah, it's like just go have fun. It's like whenever you play like middle school basketball, like like your coach will be like, you'll have a play that's just like basketball. It's like just go set screens, like they'll just be
Yeah.
like, go set screens and roll. Like that's
Yep.
that's
It's
all it is.
exactly what it is.
Yeah. Which is funny. But also, and besides all of my issues with Bud's scheming last year, shout out Boonholzer. I've seen pictures of him all over Milwaukee still, like out at a bunch of
Oh,
festivals and stuff. So shout out
I,
him. I think glad he's staying in
Budenholzer's
the
not a bad
city.
guy.
Yeah, no, he's
Yeah.
and I always condolences to him. I know he lost his brother there in the playoff series in a car accident, and that was unfortunate to hear. And he was dealing with a lot of family issues throughout the year. I've heard as well. He was also had like an injury in the middle of the year, like he was in like a
Yep.
walking boot, which was really weird. So I don't know. Also, condolences to our new coach. His grandkid was killed, died.
What?
Yeah, in
I didn't hear about
Chicago.
that.
Yeah, it was a few weeks ago. It was
Oh,
very small thing, but yeah, condolences out to the Griffin family for the loss of their like less than 5-year-old kid, which is very
oh god,
unfortunate.
yeah.
Um,
Prayers out for sure.
yeah. All right. Well, let's get into the bulk of our episode. So me and Mattias were kind of brainstorming about things we could talk about today. And really, I think what we came down to is we kind of just wanted to talk about basketball and the play styles and players that we've enjoyed and, how people have felt about them. One of the really interesting things that really brought this to our thought process is I feel like over the last few weeks in basketball discourse, since it's been the later parts of the offseason, people start looking back at a lot of old players and especially old stars, and they kind of evaluate how they feel about them now versus how people felt about them then. And it's really interesting to look back at some of these players. So we're going to be pulling up some, old players that or new players that kind of were underappreciated, even all-time greats that were underappreciated for like how they evolved basketball and how good they really were. And like, especially the ones that have been kind of their mantra, their whole idea in basketball fans' heads have kind of been switched up. So I don't know if you want to go into a guy that you got, Mattias, so we'll let you go first.
Yeah, I'm gonna start with the all-time great talent, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
Dirk. I think he's a pretty obvious one because there was a real big switch, and after he won the title, and really, I feel like after his career, Dirk came in as at the time a really revolutionary big. But he had the European tax already. He had the unathletic tax, which a lot of people didn't believe you could like really win with an unathletic big. He had the stretch tax as well at the time. People weren't, again, you were thinking traditional bigs at the time. Seeing these bigs dribbling and shooting post fadeaways or threes, people didn't like that. It wasn't a winning player at the time.
Yeah.
And then he won the title, and then like I feel like it just completely switched the scope on his career.
Yeah. It's really interesting because Dirk was a very unique player for a very long time. Like there was no one his size with like that level of like shooting talent, like to that level, which is like crazy because like now, like today, like prime Dirk would be like his shooting talent would not like obviously
No, it
he
would not
had it
compare.
like it would be like to like the same level as some of these other guys. Obviously he had great footwork and tough shot
Yeah.
maker all the time, which makes him an all-time great compared to other people. But like as a pure shooting standpoint, like he would be comparable. Like a guy like Karl Anthony Towns is like worlds crazy.
Well, yeah, Karl Anthony Towns is probably the best big man shooter ever, and it's one of those
he
things
is
where
statistically and viewpoint wise.
I think it's just funny that they're both white guys, but
yeah,
Larry Bird and Dirk Nowitzki I feel like kind of have the same role where when you look at Larry Bird, he was a very revolutionary shooter, but
Hmm.
like compare him to other guard and forward shooters now,
Yeah.
we see guys on higher volume better everywhere.
Yeah.
And it's like Dirk's the same way. We see the same guys
Yeah. And I
do
think you
that.
can
It's
really
like,
when you evaluate Dirk though, when you talk about like, I think what people really underappreciate about Dirk is like the level of impact that had on like the evolution of big men in the NBA. Like the
yeah.
people talk about Curry like evolving shooting, which obviously did. Like he made
Oh
teams
yeah,
start shooting
he's the number one.
threes. Yeah. But like Dirk like being like a skilled big man that was like shooting mid ranges and shooting threes and being the best player of the team doing that, it was like a very rare thing. And like that opened up the world for like, a Chris Bosh, like when he joined the Heat to start shooting, Kevin Love evolving his game to start adding an outside
A
shot
lot of evolution.
as a stretch four. Even then, like other guys, like in today's game, obviously, like a Cat, like a Miles Turner, which is a little different, but even guys like that, like being able to do that was not a normal thing, and teams were
There's
not.
Jokic too.
Yeah,
There's Embiid.
Jokic. Yeah. So I think that's like a really interesting one because like everyone knows how good Dirk was. Like people would be like,
Yeah.
he's the probably third or fourth. That power forward list.
Top five power forward.
That power forward list. I won't
Yeah.
speak on it,
But
I won't
but when
speak
you
on
look,
it. But
yeah, we won't right now. But when you look at Dirk during the time, a majority of his career, I mean, he was one of the one seeds to lose to an 8 seed. There's so much hate on him not being a winning player and all this blah blah
and he
blah.
took Kobe's MVP in
Yep.
2006 when Kobe averaged like 35 or whatever however many points it was.
And this is also kind of my problem with ring culture is that like people were blinded and not appreciating Dirk for so long because he didn't win it. He didn't win it. Winning is fucking hard, dude. It's hard. It's like, and it's sometimes it doesn't come down to one player. There's usually 7 players to play, 6, 7 players to play. And you could play great and never win. And that's not how you should evaluate players. Yeah. And then as soon as Dirk won, he's great.
Yeah, I mean that's so true. Like look at Jokic before this year. Like he was a great playoff performer. And like it all just was like disregarded because he didn't have a ring. So it's kind of crazy.
Yeah, and it's just like it's Giannis as well.
Yep.
And it's like even young, like, and then for example, someone like young Kawhi.
Mm-hmm.
Young Kawhi was propelled into conversations early on in his career that he should not have been propelled into because
of the winning.
Was a Finals MVP.
Yeah, which is man, bro. You could throw me out there, and if I was playing small forward guarding LeBron and my team won the Finals, I would get Finals MVP, bro. Those two, Kawhi and Iggy,
I will say Kawhi's MVP is a little better than Iggy's because the Spurs, if you look at their stats, it was actually very, very equal offensively as well. And I think Kawhi did a better job defensively.
Yeah. No, that Iggy Finals MVP is crazy.
Oh, I agree. That was terrible. But more of like the regular season after and how like people were saying Kawhi's offensive, like people started overrating Kawhi's offensive game.
Yeah.
And it's like, I don't want to seem like Kawhi. It's like I'm saying Kawhi wasn't a good player. He was a great player, but he was propelled into some talks they shouldn't have been into just because he won a ring.
Yeah, and I think that also propelled him past and then made him what he was because of that.
I mean, he went past everything people were saying, comparing him to at the time. So it's like, maybe they were right. They were right.
Yeah, Kawhi is probably going to be a guy that's underappreciated as well. Like
I agree because his overall counting stats suck.
Yeah. Like his score, like his all-time scoring numbers are like low. Mm-hmm. Like and like his like none of his counting stats because he's been injured so much, and like he's just gonna be remembered as like I feel like really unfair weird labels that get put on people. Like he's gonna be put on like they're gonna be like in like 15 years. You log into no longer Twitter, X.com. You log into X.com in 15 years, and I feel like you're gonna see like they'll be like. Kawhi's a ring merchant. Look at his stats. All he did was win. People only liked him so much back in the day, and people only overrate him because of his rings, because he won those 2 championships. It's
Yeah,
like,
and they'll start
no,
saying his defense was overrated.
yeah, all
Like they'll
that
pick
stuff.
these one game sample sizes where someone dropped like 45 on him, and it's like he's
Be like,
overrated.
yeah, this is like my favorite thing. You pull up on like a fan account and be like, watch Kobe drop 55 on blah 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 prime Kawhi. It's like, yeah, it was Kobe, bro. Like LeBron was torching blah 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 in 2013. Yeah, no,
Yeah,
LeBron's torching everyone in 2013.
some play like Drew Holiday's got cooked by Kevin Porter. It's NBA.
Yeah, people underrate Drew.
Oh, 100%,
Yeah,
100%.
Drew's so good, man. It's crazy how good he is, and people like that defensive load with that offensive load that he had to take last year is actually nuts.
No,
Like he's literally the
100%.
only perimeter shot creator on the roster.
No, their offense was so ugly. I was talking about it. I can't remember who I was talking about it with it in the community, but I was like, the Bucks they're gonna struggle because they have nothing offensively. They have no creation.
Yeah, last year.
Yeah, they had like
Yeah,
nothing.
it was bad. We were like, it was bad, and that's why Giannis's usage rate was like the highest usage rate of all time.
Yeah,
Is because he was literally doing all the ball handling, all the playmaking outside of Drew, all of this all of the rim creation, and it's because of that scheme, which is just the whatever. But
yeah.
yeah,
There's some people that there's a Blazers podcast, the Locked On Blazers podcast. They do gameless minute counters and just see how bad they are. And
yeah.
I don't want to see the Giannis list minutes.
It's bad, dude.
I bet they are
bad. It's
terrible,
especially on offense. It's horrible. like people point to that play. Like, look at that playoff game we won without Giannis. You want to know why? Because we hit 29 threes. That's why we won.
That's not
like that's never gonna happen again. Like, and you know what's crazy is like the Bucks have always been known as this really good catch and shoot team. We're not even that good of a shooting team.
Like, you just have like one or two good catch and shoot players.
Which I am perfectly fine with moving on from them because I'm over it. Just over.
Yeah, but I also think you can move on from one because you're bringing in. I think MarJon is going to be a legitimate stretch. I think he'll be about a league average stretch this year.
Yeah, me too.
Somewhere it's like he provides cutting and other offensive things.
Speaking of MarJon, shout out my boy Mark. 83 points, baby. Let's get it.
We forgot to talk about that earlier. I can't believe it.
Oh my goodness. Quick MarJon interrupts. My goodness. He was, I don't know. Did you watch the highlights of that game?
Dude.
They were crazy.
Some of the moves he were doing were insane.
Yeah, he had it in he had that in air layup, and the dude like jumped and he switched it from his right to his left and he threw it. That was so nasty.
And he had this, oh god, there were some of his handles. His handle looked so improved. I know these guys aren't like good NBA players, but CJ Ellaby was guarding him. He wasn't a good NBA player, but he was an NBA player.
Yeah.
Like that, he was a great D1 basketball player. Like, these guys are good basketball players.
Yeah, people always talk about Pro-Am like it's just like dudes off the street. Like, no, these are good basketball players.
It's not me. Like,
yeah, like it's not like I could just go and show up to the crossover and be like, "Give me a jersey, baby. I'm hooping with freaking MarJon today." Like, no.
It's like really D2 or higher, I'd say.
Yeah, I'm so excited for MarJon. I think I haven't bought a Bucks jersey in a long time. I think I'm gonna get a MarJon jersey this year. I think that's gonna be my new Bucks purchase for the year. Is then we get a MarJon jersey. I just want to know if MarJon, if you do see this clip, I absolutely love you. You're my favorite player ever. So, shout out my guy. So, yeah, hopefully,
out MarJon, dude, I love him. Washington legend.
Yeah, hopefully, I pray. I'm so excited because I'm really excited for this coaching staff to come in because every player's on a blank slate. Like, there's nobody, like, none of these role players are guaranteed to their roles that they had last year.
Yeah.
And if MarJon is really looking like this, like, I think he has a legitimate chance to, if they want to put him at the 2, he could start at the 2, which might cause some spacing issues because his shooting's a little inconsistent, but like he could be the 7th man off the bench. Like, I would be perfectly fine with that.
Yeah. I think it's going to be something where he's definitely going to have to come off the bench. He's going to spend a lot of his time playing with Giannis, but I also think he's going to be spending a lot of time, I feel like, playing with Giannis and Drew. Yeah. And playing that Chris Middleton role. But I also kind of want to see him playing a ball handling role.
Yes.
Just to see, especially just against bench competition. Maybe in his Giannis list minutes,
Yes, if he can get some minutes running with the bench unit, that'd be great. If they're able to put in a bench unit where it doesn't have to be a like, if he can play like a backup ball handling minutes, like because the Bucks have no backup point guard on the
No,
roster right now.
you can give Drew, Chris, or Giannis a break.
Yes, let MarJon develop. Okay, this is what I gotta
Yeah,
say. The regular season for us, get a good seed, which we will be because we have Giannis Antetokounmpo on our team. It does not matter.
and Chris Middleton and Drew
And
Holiday.
Chris Middleton, Drew Holiday, and Brooke Lopez. Like you have
I've been
three of the
forgetting about
top.
Brooke this whole
You
recording.
have
What the
three
hell?
of the top 10 defenders in the NBA. Okay, on
Yeah,
your roster. Okay, you'll be good. All right.
top 15 probably.
Yeah,
Top
ish.
10, arguably top 10.
Arguably top 10.
I mean, they're all three. They're all DPOY level players. So
Yes,
maybe.
literally 3 DPOY candidates, like year
Yeah.
in year out DPOY candidates.
So there you go. Maybe they're not
Let
top 10.
some of these and I think Adrian Griffin's going to because he was a player development coach with the Raptors.
Mm-hmm.
Let these young guys run in the minutes and games that don't matter. Let's rest some games. Like do not need to be in these battles with the Houston Rockets on December 27th.
No. No.
It doesn't limit the minutes, let MarJon play, let Andrew Jackson Jr. play. Chris Livingston also, he's my favorite draft pick of the year. I don't know if you're familiar with him, but
no, I haven't watched much of him. You told me, I think last video to check him out. I need to check him out.
Yeah,
I still haven't watched much.
He's got potential, and he looked good in summer league. I'm excited for him. Like his shot looks good, and I think he could develop really good. I think he's about probably like a 2-year away player, but like let these guys come up and play in the G League. These G League guys, like let them come up, let them play in these random games where like Giannis, you're gonna play 2 quarters, and if we need you, you can play, but you don't need to be playing 10 minutes of the first quarter, 8 minutes of the second quarter, resting half the third, and then closing out the fourth. Like that doesn't need to be happening next year.
And I also think there's a way they can develop these guys in winning basketball as well, because you don't want to just play these guys when winning doesn't matter, because then they get in a winning situation in the playoffs and they crumple. But you can stagger these minutes where you could put MarJon and the bench just with no Giannis, Chris, or Drew. Because when you watch the Bucks, a majority of the time, 2 or definitely at least 1 of the 3 are always on the floor.
Yeah,
and like you can give staggered minutes to where they can play.
Yeah, and if Giannis isn't on the floor, you still have Brooke Lopez that's probably going to be out there, and he can run the pick and roll. He can pick and pop. Like I'm also intrigued. I wonder if they give Andre Jackson Jr. a couple of the backup point guard duties because he's not a great shooter, and especially if he's running with the bench unit, like
he's a good player.
It's all role players that are decent shooters, like so he can handle the ball.
Another underrated thing about Brooke Lopez is that if like you're running a bench unit with Andre Jackson, MarJon, all these guys, and it's looking ugly, Brooke can carry an offensive load for a little bit.
He's so good in the post. It's I'm so mad that we didn't use him in the post more. Like in that Heat series, I think we literally would have won in 5 games if we literally just let Brooke post up. But so I'm gonna get one of my guys that I'm gonna get to this for these underappreciated and maybe overlooked guys in the future. I'm gonna bring a current guy. I want to talk about DeMar DeRozan because I think DeMar DeRozan is gonna be one of those guys that like has like a borderline Hall of Fame career, and like he's gonna get in like his second eligibility term, and like people are gonna be like, why? And like people are not going to remember how good he actually was because of like the LeBronto thing and the playoff struggles and the playoff dropping, which is I think can mostly be applied to him, but also some of it I think can be applied to the way teams are structured around him. Like he has never been fit to be a number 1 option on a championship guard team.
Nope.
Like at his peak though, like he could have been like a Chris Middleton, like to like
100%.
Giannis, or to like if he could be like the second scoring option on a championship team, or even the third, like he would be like remembered completely different.
Yeah, and I also think the fact that the Raptors won the finals after he left, like literally he was known as the Raptors GOAT basically. And he left and they got better. It's like, people are gonna look at that and really really hold on to
Yeah.
it.
Let me yeah, I mean, and with that, like I think people are always gonna look at that a little weird, which is gonna be unfortunate because
I
it really
agree.
wasn't his fault. I mean, they traded for one of the best players of all time.
Yeah, and it's like
um
again, like we've said, you can't blame a loss on one player. There's 48 minutes in a game. A player doesn't play 48 minutes, so you can't really put all of that playoff. Like yes, he's been a playoff dropper, but you can't blame him necessarily.
yeah, like these stats, like his statistically for his career, like he's averaged 21, 4, and 4 on 46% from the field and 84% from the line. And like he's a 6-time All-Star and a 3-time All NBA player.
Yeah,
Like that's crazy.
great player.
Yeah. And like last year for him was like arguably his best year. And it was like, and it was just out of nowhere. I think it's just he's going to be always be an underappreciated player for how he played and how good he was at what he did. Like as a shot creator, especially in the mid range, like there's like not that many more people like all time that are better than him at mid range shot creation.
No, 100%. And I also think he's a great foul baiter. Like he also was
Yeah.
a big part in the foul baiting revolution.
Yeah,
Is resistant
he's
shots.
really good at drawing contact because he's so good at shooting. He's good so such good such a great mid-range creator that he could use that to his advantage. Like you can't leave him open. Like you have to contest everything.
No, and his pump fakes are so elite, dude.
Yeah,
His
they're
pump fakes
so
are like,
deep.
oh,
Like I don't know if you know what I mean, but like they're so like deep. Like he goes all the way back.
all the way
And
up.
yeah, it's crazy. Yeah, and I think DeMar's like also like what he did off like outside of basketball with really bringing like this is going to be overlooked obviously because this is more of a thing for the people who have known him as he was playing, but bringing awareness to like mental health in sports, like him doing that is like is one of the
100%.
most awesome things that's happened in the NBA in the last like 10
Yeah,
years.
I feel like the mental health thing is like was a really good movement for the NBA because
Yeah.
and because it's even become a thing with trainers and all that. They take the psychology of it really seriously, and I
Hmm.
think that's also an issue why we see players sit out games. I
Yeah.
think there's actually some mental health games that these players have to take off because it's a toll. It's a
Yeah.
mental toll to do all of this travel, play. You're beating up your body, especially if you struggle with injuries. Coming
Yeah.
back from injury,
Not seeing your family for extended time, barely
yeah,
seeing your family. Like,
yeah,
and like how
it's
hard
really
that
hard.
is. And like people think that like NBA players don't like professional athletes don't have off time. Like they might have a month and a half where they enjoy vacation after the season ends. But after that, they have to go right back in, rehab any nagging injuries from the rest of the year, do rehab, you know, and then start training again to get ready
Yeah,
because they have to be in shape by the time training camp comes around. It's
bulking.
only 2 months.
Yeah, it's a lot, and I think it's just a mental toll, and a lot of people don't realize it. And now we have social media, and it's become so even worse what you get from the hate.
Yes. Like the
It's bad,
prevalence of hate towards athletes is so in their face now. That's why you see
so
a lot
bad.
of athletes not even engage on social media.
Yeah,
It's kind of why KD is such like a anomaly with how much he engages because he just doesn't care. Also, because like
he just hates on them back. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Like he's a troll himself, so it works. Kind of like
which is
Embiid.
awesome.
Embiid kind of went quiet on social media though, but like
Yeah,
Embiid pre Hawks
I think that
meltdown was
I
great.
think it's because the trolling got to a point where it's like you don't have place to troll, man.
Done anything?
You haven't secured the right to be a
Yeah,
KD troll on
I think
Twitter.
after that it was after that Hawks loss. I think is
Yeah,
when
he
he
stopped
went
doing
quiet.
all that
Yeah.
ridiculousness. Yeah. Um, yeah, I don't know if you got another if you got a current guy that you comes to mind when you think of that kind of
Um.
underrated or underappreciated guy
Yeah.
for the
Someone
future.
that's I think I feel like someone that's underrated in the past, I guess, and now is I'm just gonna say Steve Nash.
Oh yeah.
And I think Steve Nash is someone that's going to be remembered better as advanced analytics become more prevalent in the
Yeah.
breakdown of this game.
I saw a
Because
Steve Nash breakdown the other day and I was reading through it. It was crazy. I had
his
never seen that.
he hits all the marks on these advanced analytics, and I
Yeah.
think as the game progresses more towards evaluating like that, he's going to
Mhm.
be remembered. Great, they're going to be people that are saying that he deserved more MVPs, dude. Like I'm serious, because
Yeah.
you're going to look. He's like, even though you average 20, he was so good.
Yeah, I saw a thing about the Western Conference Finals or some series that they played, and he was averaging like 14, like 20 and 14 in the series. And then like I forgot who they were playing, but they like switched their whole mindset. So I think they were playing the Spurs. I think it's the year that
Mm,
they lost to the Spurs. And they switched the whole defensive flow on it. And it was like we're gonna lock in on everyone else. We're gonna cut off the shooting and the cutting lanes, and we're gonna let Steve Nash cook. And he averaged like 40 over the next two games.
yeah. No,
Like,
he was so good. He could do whatever he wanted with the offense. It's just he knew how to create the best shot possible at all times.
yes, he's like a
Something like Jokic
non
is been similar.
like he's like a non-shot chucking Harden.
Yeah.
Like you like literally like
Well,
think of
D'Antoni,
Harden.
right?
Yes, like think of like that Harden, but like not shooting as much and still running that good of an offense.
Yeah, with
Like
that
that's
high level
crazy.
playmaking. I
Yeah,
think that's actually been a weakness in Harden's career. Is that I think if he delved into that playmaking more, man,
like back then.
like yeah, back
Yeah.
then, and like
I
even
think it
now a
would have
little bit, it's
opened
like
up
I feel like he
who
could play make even
I think
more.
it would have opened up who he could have played with a lot
Agreed.
more. Like I think the front office in Houston would have had a lot more options on who they could get to play with him. I remember they were. I remember there was Jimmy rumors to Houston because that's where he's from. I remember they obviously were interested in Paul George and stuff, but then that team kind of disintegrated. Speaking
Yeah.
of that, I think Paul George is going to be one of those guys too. I mean, Paul George's career is going to be really underappreciated, and like his actual play is going to be like underappreciated because like I don't think his numbers or like other than his 2018 2019 season.
Yeah,
um
that was the season with OKC, right?
yeah, I think so. I don't remember which season was. Whatever his
I don't
MVP
remember off the top of my head.
OKC, his MVP
Yeah,
candidacy OKC season, I think it was 2019.
yeah.
Oh, no, it's 2018, 2017, 2018, because 2018, 2019 is Giannis's first MVP.
Oh, okay.
So it's 2017,
I'm bad with those
2018.
exact years.
Yeah. So 2017, 2018, that Paul George is like one of the craziest like individual peak seasons I've ever watched in my
Oh,
own eyes.
100%. But dude, it's already crazy the revisionist history on it.
Yeah. He
People
was a
I've
top
already
3
seen.
MVP and DPOY candidate.
Yeah, dude, I've already seen people say he wasn't the best player on that team that season, and I'm
Oh, he
like,
was.
get the fuck out of here. I love Russell Westbrook, but come on,
Yeah,
no,
Russ
that's
and Russ
crazy.
was good still. Russ was very good. Like, do
Oh,
not
Russ
get
was
that
amazing.
twisted.
There was a reason they were that good. There was a reason many people had them because they were a 3 seed, correct?
Yeah, I think they were a top 3 seed.
They
Is
were a
that
three
the
seed and they
Utah
lost to
year?
Utah. They lost to
Yeah.
Utah at the 6 seed, and many people had them as like a 3 seed that was contending.
Yes.
It was
And
similar
the
to like the
West was
cat.
deep.
I wouldn't say like the Cavs were like a contending team, but people were looking at the Cavs this year like a lot of people were predicting the Cavs to go on a deep playoff run or like challenge these contenders, and I feel like that's kind of the scope that they had on them.
Yeah. I think it was and overall too like back and like pre-injury like in Indiana like he was going head to head with LeBron as like a third year player, man.
Oh my god, dude, that dunk on Birdman is
Yes.
oh
Man, I need low key, talking about these old players. I need a throwback. Like I need a playoffs. The playoffs have been good. I need a
mm,
playoffs with more moments. Like I needed more moments oriented playoffs. And I think like the last one was like 2021 was like all
Bucks.
moments. There's just so many like shots and
Yeah,
like from like a finals run, just like and like a big series. I
yeah.
need something like that again.
I feel like though in these finals recently, I feel like games haven't like really been like I don't know. I don't want to say not super close, but I feel like there's been a team in
Well,
the driver's seat the whole series.
this last year was the fakest close games I've ever seen in my
Yeah.
life.
Oh, agreed.
Uh,
And then also, but the year before with the Celtics and the Warriors, like just watching that series, I didn't. I even when the Celtics went up 2-0, correct?
yeah,
Or 2-1,
2-1.
something like that. They went up. I I was never I was never worried the Warriors weren't going to win that series. Like
Yeah,
I felt like there was an obvious dominant team these last few years.
yeah. Also, it was Steph Curry's time, man. He was just like he's not losing. I think I
No,
think the Warriors. I think Steph kind of knew that this is like, if I want one more and I want that Finals MVP, like
got to go now.
it's now or never, because you can see
Yeah.
now that team is not what it used to be. So
One more player I want to add, just because we talk about
yeah,
the Miami Heat series, I want to talk about Chris Bosh, dude.
yeah,
I don't think Chris Bosh is going to be remembered because that man is an animal.
he is.
His Toronto days, amazing, and even his role that he played on the Heat, he was really, really good. And he just like, it's one of those things where you see it with the Warriors. These players, Draymond Green is one of them. He had to take an offensive cut. He just had to sacrifice.
Yeah,
And Chris Bosh is one that did that.
yeah.
And I think he was a great player, dude.
Oh yeah, especially in Toronto. Like his level of play in Toronto was actually nuts. Like he was a monster. Like paint, just rebounding. I mean, he showed flashes of the jump shot. He never really fully converted until Miami.
Mm-hmm.
But like that level, that Bosch was nuts. He had the dreads and stuff. It was crazy.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he was amazing.
yeah. I think it was actually like really, he'll be really underappreciated too, especially for what he provided to those Miami teams. Like they would not have been as good as they were. Like if it was just LeBron and Wade, they would not have been as good as they were.
Rebound to Bosh holds so much
Yeah.
power. Without Chris
Yes.
Bosh, you're not winning that finals,
Yes.
dude.
If they didn't do that year, it would have been gotten nasty, man. It would have been nasty. That would have been some nasty.
Talk about an all-time finals moment, dude.
Yes, literally. I have a guy in mind he's my guy, obviously, but I think he's gonna look back more favorably later in time than he is now by a lot of people, and that's Giannis.
Oh, 100%.
Like, I think right now Giannis's game and like what he does on the basketball court is honestly like underappreciated for how good he is and how unanimously good everyone knows he is.
It's
Like
just ignored.
it's just like ignored. Like how good of a scorer he is and how hyper efficient he is. Like in the minutes he put, like he averages 32 points. He averaged 32 points a game last year on like 28 minutes, 29 minutes a game.
Yeah, no. He's
That's like
super
unheard
efficient,
of.
and he's an elite defender.
Yeah, he's like best in the league defensive level. Not just like locking up, like
dude, no, 100%.
best in the league.
Every time I'll see someone like try to convince me a little bit that Giannis isn't like, he's at the very bottom of top 5 defender of the league, but I think he's top 3.
Yeah.
I think he's top 3. And it's like,
I've said it. I'm gonna go on record now. I'm gonna say it now. I'll talk about it again whenever we talk about the Bucks and we do our team breakdowns, conference breakdowns, whatever. Is going to be like premier defensive player in the league next year because of the scheme that we're switching to. Like
okay,
if you're
I'll
letting
see.
him,
He's already a premier.
If they literally let Giannis switch like 1 through 5 on pick and rolls and stuff, and they give him the green light to do that, like it's gonna be scary hours for what his defensive stats look like.
Well, watch 21-21 finals. It's not necessarily like switching, but it's let Giannis prowl on ball. I guess it's switching, but you let him prowl because if he's an aggressive defender, like you saw him as an aggressive defender in the finals, and he was just embarrassing them, embarrassing them.
It's literally not fair, like how good he was. Like literally, that block on Ayton is crazy.
Yeah, and I think
please go back and look at that and tell me how many people you know. And
dude, the block on McCall in the first like 45 seconds of the game was insane too.
His recovery speed is nuts.
He had a block on a Devin Booker jumper that was clutch. Dude, has multiple steals on Chris Paul in the clutch. Insane.
He averaged like over. Didn't he ever? I don't know what his exact numbers was. I know it was like 34 and 14 and like 4.
I think it was like 2 blocks.
It was like 2 blocks a game in the finals.
I think.
That's nuts. Off of a.
It was
also good. Really finals.
Broken leg,
like literally leg bent backwards at a 90-degree angle. Like it literally looked like this, bro.
Backwards. Oh, dude, I remember watching that injury against the Hawks, and I was
there. I was literally
like, oh my god, his career's over because Giannis is one of my favorite players, and I was
I'm dude. When I tell you the absolute silence that went over.
Oh.
I was in those big watch parties outside the stadium. when I tell you that everyone just like literally their eyes just and
Everyone was
just
black.
sunk.
Everyone's
The
eyes
entire
went.
your heart just sunk with
The whole
what
city of
everyone.
Milwaukee went quiet.
Yeah, yeah, it was nuts. And then Brooke Lopez had a master class like 30-point game for our
Yeah,
to bring us to the finals. But
I do think Giannis's depoys. I think like his defensive or his lack of depoys is going to be like looked upon like Tim Duncan's, and we're going to be like, how the hell did he not get more depoys? He deserved these
yeah, Duncan
as
has
well.
0.
Stupid, dumbest thing I've
Yeah,
ever seen in my life.
I know. Giannis is. It's only Giannis, Hakeem, and Jordan are the only players to win MVP and DPOY in the same year and
Yeah.
have a Finals MVP as well.
Yeah, another point I want to make about Giannis. This is actually a point I want to be making a while. I can't remember if I said it last video, but I see a lot of people saying Joel Embiid is kind of like a new age Hakeem, and I disagree. I think Giannis's game is actually a lot more similar to Hakeem's, and I think
the one problem I have
Joel
is
Embiid is a lot more jumper punch.
Giannis's touch sometimes can be a little spotty, but
yeah, but I feel like that comes from him rushing himself a little bit.
Yeah, Giannis does speed up his mental clock a little bit too much sometimes because you see when he really slows down his game, like his touch and jump shooting is way better when he doesn't think about it.
When he's just lets like the flow of the game come to him, and he doesn't force it. Like it's fine.
Which is always
that's always so underrated.
Yes, it is. His footwork is great. Like the ability for him to move around like he does and slide through people and move around down there with that many bodies on him, like is like people don't understand how much good footwork. Like Anthony Edwards had an interview during the season where he was like, they were talking about Giannis. He's like, well, it doesn't matter. You put 4 guys on him, he's gonna get right past you and he's gonna lay it up every time.
Yeah, he has finesse that no other, well, some other, but like not many other 6'11" people have, and he also has power and speed that not many 6'11" people have. And I also think his physical evaluation is actually way more on part of Hakeem's as well compared to someone like Embiid. Because I think Embiid started as a more post-heavy player, but I feel like now he's more of a perimeter-based player.
Yeah, he's more of a mid-range. He creates from mid-range inside. He used to be from like inside to mid-range to 3.
Yeah, I shouldn't say perimeter player, but I should say more face-up.
Yes.
I feel like he's a lot more heavy face-up.
Yeah, also the toll that Giannis takes, like from like what he goes through, and like him not like is actually nuts. Like the level of physicality he has to deal with. Literally every single person is hacking him every play.
Oh yeah,
like dude, if Giannis was literally like he's like a career 70% shooter from the line. If he's like a 75% shooter, he'd average like 35 a game.
Yeah. And it's like, I feel like someone that also has to deal with that too is Jokic. Like you always see Giannis and Jokic coming out the post and their arms are just like
bleeding and like
and they're
cuts
bruised,
and stuff.
And it's like no foul has been called all game. And you're like,
yeah, foul. Sure.
Like, that's called on the park, dude.
Sure. There's a play that's popular in my head was one of the craziest plays all year. Giannis was driving on the court and Joel Embiid just dropped his shoulder into his stomach to stop him. And he still went through him and finished. Like, that's actually crazy.
Giannis was so physically strong and didn't flop that was a flagrant. And it just looked so normal because of it.
Yeah.
Dude, but play that scares. Oh, go ahead.
No, you go.
I was thinking, a play that popped in head when I'm thinking about Giannis and fouls is the Justice Winslow chiropractor one.
Oh, he like grabs him.
Dude, he like grabbed him by the neck. It was so brutal.
Yeah. But yeah, like overall, like Giannis is obviously like I think I just had to bring him up because he's obviously like my favorite player of all time. He's like my franchise GOAT and like but like I really think that people don't appreciate like how good he is and how like for how long. Like he's the only player in history to have 5 straight All-NBA first teams completely unanimously.
Yeah.
Like that's crazy.
And some of that is unfairly due to LeBron hate, but
yes, unfairly.
It's still a great achievement.
Yes. And realistically, like you could argue he should have won. He has a significant argument to win the last 3 MVPs.
Yeah, and honestly, I wouldn't say this last depoy, but I think he has an argument on the Marcus Smart depoy, 100%.
Yeah, probably. The only reason that he probably didn't is because Brooke was injured that year, so their defensive numbers were outside the top 10. So they're statistically their defense wasn't great, but he was
We
literally
have
the
advanced
primary rim
analytics.
protector and help side defender.
Yeah, we have enough analytics now that are movement based and individual based that we
Yeah.
can now vote on depoy separate of just team defensive stats and eye test. We should be able to put in those advanced analytics because
And those
Giannis is amazing.
and like I really think that you're gonna see a lot of change in awards voting over the next like 5 to 10-ish years, because I think when a lot of these new voters, new media voters, like younger people who are getting into sports media, are going to get votes, and it's going to be they're going to look at it in such a different way. I mean, it's already
Oh,
changing
100%.
now. It's already changing now.
Yeah, Jokic. But Jokic is both.
Yeah, Jokic is dope, so who cares?
Yeah.
But like, it's like I think you'll see like it's like you're going to see an MVP where it's like he's the MVP because like he's that good statistically and analytically, and he's also good in the eye test. But it's like,
Yeah.
and I think voter fatigue is not going to be as big of an issue going forward. I think that's a very
I
much
agree.
an old age thing with media members feeling like new things are going to pop. And I
I
think media,
hate that. I hate the
yeah,
take where someone deserves it's his MVP now. No, you got to win it, dude. If Giannis
yeah,
was a better player or Jokic was a better player, give it to him.
yeah. And I think obviously people are probably going to think we're just talking about Embiid, but Embiid
It's
did
just
deserve
it's
it.
just
Let's not get
it's
this
the most
twisted.
recent MVP.
Yes, Embiid did had an MVP season. Let's get that
Yes.
straight.
No, I agree. It's just they have been the top
The
3
reason that
MVP.
the main agenda push to get him the MVP was the wrong one.
Yeah. People were pushing it because it was his time to not that
Yeah.
he is having an MVP season where he's playing like one of the best centers of all time.
Yes. Yeah, it's
That's what should have been pushed, not the anti Jokic and statistics agenda and the he deserves it. It was just a bad way to go about an all-time great season.
I agree. Yeah, I don't know if you got any more guys like that just randomly pop in your head. I mean, I got a couple guys. I think man, I just had one in my head, I just blanked. But like some stars like from the last like decade, like I think a guy like Melo is always going to be really underappreciated
Yeah.
because of like he didn't win,
Yeah.
and he's just gonna be a bunch of empty. Like the people are gonna say empty numbers. He's not a winner. A guy like all that kind of stuff. Which I think I almost said Lamelo, Carmelo Anthony, the real Melo is I think he has fair criticisms on his resume and his play style and the
Yeah.
decisions he made as a prime player and how he evolved his game. Like I think there's always going to be criticisms about the passing and how he impacted winning, but I think a lot of them are going to be like unfairly applied to how good he is. Like I think people are going to use that as like he wasn't that good when it's like he was that good that none of those weaknesses mattered.
Yeah,
That
it
he
really
was still
mattered.
that good.
It's honestly comparable to DeMar DeRozan a little bit. Obviously,
Yeah.
he's had a greater career, but it's
Yeah.
comparable to where like they didn't really evolve their games, they didn't really win, didn't make the best decisions as one options, and like had some low moments in the playoffs.
Do you think there's any younger guys in the league, like not super young, obviously, like first 3-4 years, but maybe guys that are like not like maybe guys in like that 25-ish range that might get remembered like that? I feel like there's probably I mean, like a guy like depending how Zach LaVine's career goes, I think people will
Yeah,
never really appreciate how good he was. I think
Zach, they still aren't right now, dude. Zach LaVine is great.
yes. Yes. I'm trying to think of other guys who
Someone
are
that I
maybe
already can tell is set up to not be appreciated, and I know you said not within the first 3-4 years, but I can already tell Scotty Barnes is gonna deal with a lot of criticisms.
Yes. Yes, he's going to deal with a lot of criticism. And I'm very excited for this next Raptor season because even though their team is dynamic is absolute the most confusing thing ever. I don't know what they're building over there, but overall, Point Scotty is coming this year,
Yep.
and I'm all for it. It's going to be
No,
so
I
fun.
agree.
And I hope they just let him develop and just play point guard.
I agree. And a lot of fans forget that development isn't linear at all.
No.
So Scotty Barnes could have had a disappointing year last year, but he could come out and basically like theoretically double his production. Like it's not, or he could have another quiet year and then his fourth year he just freaking booms. Another example of that is Anthony Simons. He was like, "Oh, we think he can be a rotational player. Oh no. oh yeah, he's like our bench guard. Oh no. Oh, okay, we need to trade CJ McCollum because he's the guy. And now at this point, he's probably
And
our
it's like
best player on our team.
all-star potential.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like,
Yeah, I think it'd be interesting. I think there'll be a lot of guys. I think it'll take some time to develop right now because I think the NBA was in like a very golden era for the last like 8 to 10ish years. Like that 2010-11 to like 2018-19, like I'll say like 2010 to bubble, like before
yeah,
like that bubble season is like was like this like golden age of like NBA stardom, and there's so many like developing areas of the game as in social media, and fans were there's new ways so many new age fans because of the rise of like video game like 2K
yeah,
and sports games and highlight reels and like all the high school mixtapes and one, all that stuff.
yeah.
Like all that stuff was like led to such a revolution into like how people like enjoy basketball. I think it's going to be really interesting how you see like over the next 4 to 5 years, what players are going to stand out as those guys. I mean, obviously you're going to have the very clear ones like Luka and Tatum. And also really quick, one guy who people don't understand about with Luka, bro, I think people need to wrap their head around. That guy is like a first ballot Hall of Famer, like already.
Already.
Like by the way, like he can retire today and he'd be a first ballot Hall of Famer.
Oh yeah.
Like
Easily.
it's actually nuts. Like
four-time
All NBA first team in 6 years.
Yeah.
Or 3 out of 5 or whatever it is. Like that's nuts. Yeah. That's crazy.
And he's got MVP and title over in Europe, like in the second best league in the world. Like
he's probably gonna win MVP next year if they're good.
Oh, 100%. All he needs is a top 3.
He just needs to be top 3 seed.
Yeah.
He might even get it with like a 6 seed.
Yeah.
Like if he had his numbers. His numbers this year were nuts. It was like 33, 8, and 8.
Yeah. If he shows defensive improvement, and it doesn't even have to be great defensive improvement. I think if he just shows a little bit defensive improvement and they're a 3 seed, they'll magnify that defensive improvement and they'll push it as an agenda.
Yes.
100%. And
similar to the Jokic stuff with him getting more comfortable playing passing lanes and being smarter with his hands in the post. Like,
yeah.
That was like obviously a clear improvement for him. So,
and that's a fair thing to be like, hey, now that he's a mid defender, now he's a league average defender, Jokic really doesn't have many weaknesses at all. So if Luka is just a league average defender, he won't really have any weaknesses.
And Luka can be. I mean, he has the body type where he can body up on guards. He doesn't have. It's not like he's undersized. It's just he's a little bit unathletic. So it's like he's not as fast. So like,
no, and I also think he takes it off a little bit.
Yeah, he just. But this Mavs are going to be a team that everyone should be watching very, very closely because I don't think their numbers are their team numbers are probably not going to reflect how good or bad they are, most likely.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if you got any other guys that or any other guys you just want to throw out there that from throwback guys that just love their game back in the day.
Throwback guys, I love their game. I'll go local. Brandon Roy, obviously.
Yes, sir.
I think someone that's going to be forgotten about very soon. And I don't mean that in a bad. It's a very sad, very, very sadly. He will not be forgotten in this area. But I think he has such a short career that he's going to be forgotten very, very quickly.
That reminds me of another guy, Trailblazer guy, and Spur, LaMarcus Aldridge. That's going to be a guy that's – I mean, he already is kind of forgotten about like now, and he's only been retired for like 2 years, but like LaMarcus was really, really good.
Really, really good. And I think also, I feel like there's kind of a trend with how people retire. Yeah. If you retire before you really get old and look bad, you will be remembered better.
Yes.
So LaMarcus Aldridge was old and looked bad. So now people are going to
and then he had like the heart issue, so he couldn't play, and then he tried to come back and his heart was still having issues, so he had to retire again. So
it's like people are just going to remember that because it's the most recent thing.
Yeah. Guy we talked about earlier in the episode, Serge Ibaka. That's going to be a forgotten guy. Like he was so good back in the like in OKC. That dude was like single-handedly carrying the defensive side of the ball for them.
Yeah, Serge Ibaka.
Yeah.
He was an absolute machine, dude. What was his block numbers, dude? I
I
feel
can
like
pull it
some
up.
of them were crazy. Maybe it was just like a playoff series block numbers that were.
Let me
I'm like, that was a whole catchphrase. He had to have been
let me
like,
pull it up.
maybe I was just young and I just remember him being way more elite on that
No,
side.
his numbers were nuts. Let me look for it. Okay, his number one block season was 2011-2012. He averaged 3.7 blocks per game. And then the year after, he averaged 3 blocks. And then obviously it kind of went down from there, obviously.
Yeah.
But even then, his in like 2020 with the Clippers, he averaged 1 block a game. In Toronto, he
Yeah.
averaged 1.4.
A lot of times his minutes diminished a bit.
Yeah, obviously. Well,
Toronto, he still played heavy minutes, but
he was giving you 15 and 7 with 3 blocks.
that's great, dude.
15 and almost 9 with 2 point with almost 3 blocks.
Serge is one of my favorite players, I think.
Yeah,
Like in terms of personality, I love watching him in interviews, and I love the food channel he does. I love
yeah,
the exotic eats.
yes, yes. Career, what's his career block numbers? I'm trying to. Oh, I can't even see him.
1.9. I'm looking at him.
Can't even.
2.5 for 7 seasons in OKC.
I forgot that he played one season in Orlando.
I did too. I'm looking at this
that's
and I'm shocked.
that's so random. I completely forgot about that. We're number 7. I remember that now though.
Yeah. Oh, another player. He's not an old time player, but a player. News went down today. I love Trent Wofford.
Oh yeah, I forgot to talk about Trent Wofford.
Yep.
Another stand member of the podcast.
Signed with the Brooklyn Nets. Great to see him sign.
Yeah, he'll be good for them. He has got playing time there. They don't have bigs. Like he can play the 4
Yep.
and the 5 for them
And
off the bench.
and they don't have a lot of playmakers, so he can play a certain role
Yeah.
for
Well,
them.
getting into that, I hope we'll wrap up that segment. I hope everyone enjoyed me and Mattias just going through some of our favorite guys from over the years. A lot of newer guys, obviously, but a lot of guys that I think just have awesome games that people just aren't going to really appreciate all the time and aren't going to get talked about because they're not going to be like cream of the crop greatest players of all time. But hopefully jog your memories. Down below, drop some names of some players that you just underrated guys from back in the day from your local teams, whatever team you root for. So, all right. So then we'll get
Yeah.
into for the last few minutes here. We're going to talk about a couple of things that happened, some other rumors. So with Damian Lillard last week, even though we did say that we weren't going to talk about Dame till the trade happens, but I think this is intriguing. That's because it's not really a Dame thing; it's more of an NBA thing. So and an agent thing, which always intrigues me. I'm a big NBA. I like sports business. I love learning about it. But so the NBA sent out a memo to all 30 teams saying that if Damian Lillard's agent reaches out to you, and insinuates this, notify us. Like insinuates that he will not play for your team. He won't suit up, even regardless of his contract. Also said that, he didn't violate any rules, but just be aware of it because he's kind of teetering the gray area between
Yeah.
tampering and talking about trade destinations. So I thought it was interesting because it's kind of just saying like, I don't think it's like saying like, oh, we don't want him to go to Miami at all, which is like, but like, I think it's like, you better be careful because this can go like the league can veto trades that they think were
Tampered or
arranged tampering and illegally.
yeah.
They can do it for free agency signings, which people don't really realize. Like the the Bucks got hit with one of those a while ago. Like we
Yep.
tried to sign um,
Bogey.
Bobby, yeah, and they found out that they tampered and they said you can't sign him and they stripped away one of our second round picks. So, and
Yeah.
then he went to Atlanta. So it's a
Yeah.
thing.
It's I definitely think they could have easily investigated and gotten tampering charges on the Heat, but it's
Yeah,
just like they don't want to do that. They don't want to make this any messier than it is because it's going to
yeah,
be a process. And obviously that memo worked because I'm pretty sure it was either yesterday or this morning there was reports coming out that Dame would play if he had to go to training camp, which
Yep.
is I expected that. I don't think he's someone that would sit out, but
Yeah.
I also
Unless the
think
team
that
said, "Hey, man, check in with us and make sure come in for your physical, but we'll
yeah,
make sure you don't have to come in."
that's completely different though. If
Yeah.
it's a team that's like, hey, we just don't want to play you.
Yeah. Which I
That's
don't think they would
different.
do either. But I'm just saying, like, if they were just like, "Hey, we're gonna work on a trade right now. We're still working on the trade. If you want to stay home, we're fine with that. Just make sure you're staying healthy. Come in for your
Yeah,
physical, whatever you want to do." I could completely
yeah.
see that.
I just think that if we know that Dame, like as a Portland fan, and I think knowing Portland fans, Dame isn't someone that is like Ben Simmons, right?
Yeah.
That during his exit with Philly was super hated on. Even through this turmoil, there's still love for Dame from 99% of these fans. And if we were watching them purposefully be like, no, we're just going to develop these guys and not put Damian Lillard out on the floor, it would be bad. It would be really bad. And also, Damian Lillard is just free ticket sales. If you can't find a trade with him, get money.
Yeah. And Dame will play. If he's not traded and they can't find anything, like he'll play. I think it would be
100%.
interesting though, with the notification that he'll play for another team. Like, will a team take a bargain on a team that they know that he has connections with? I don't think it would be a random team that he clearly doesn't want to be at. But Brooklyn, for example, like he has friends in Brooklyn. Like he's friends with Mikal Bridges.
Yeah.
He's friends with Trent Wofford, which is really random, but like it's one of his favorite guys, as you've said before.
Yeah. He's been quoted saying he loves Trent and not just like playing with him, but he's a great locker room guy.
Yeah. So, I mean, like, I think it'll be interesting. I think Brooklyn would possibly get involved. If these trade talks really do break down with Miami, I think the only place that would like really, really be engaged with him would probably be Brooklyn.
Yeah. I think you go back to like the original list, which was Miami, Brooklyn. I believe it was the Clippers, right?
I think so. Or Utah or something like that.
Oh, yeah. I think you just go to the original list. I think Utah was one of them, and even Boston. I think that's the top 5. And I think Utah is one of those things where I don't think Dame wants to go there. It's just they offer a good package, and Joe Cronin takes it and kind of puts Damian Lillard in a bad spot, which I don't want to happen. I think Boston would be very intriguing.
Yeah, I'm not. I'm gonna root against that happening with
because you don't want Dame instead of Jaylen Brown on that team.
Yeah, hey, they wouldn't even have to give up Jaylen Brown. That's the worst part.
Yeah, they probably wouldn't have to.
They could probably fill it up.
But that's filthy.
That team of I'm not trying to play a team of Dame, Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, Kristaps, and Robert Williams as the starting five.
What is their bench though? At that point, they have so much money.
It'd be horrible. It would literally. It would be horrible.
I mean, but at that point, you can stagger Dame, Jaylen Brown, Kristaps, and JT with the bench and not have to worry about it. But
you do it 2 at a time too.
Yeah, I think Brooklyn though is the most likely option if the Miami breaks down because it makes sense both for Dame because the issue with the Miami is the Tyler Hero doesn't fit the need of the Blazers. They already have Scoot and Shaden. The reason that Dame wants out
if they didn't have two guards, if they didn't have 2 guards plus Shaden, they would take Tyler Hero.
And it's just it doesn't fit. So it's like it doesn't make sense. And the picks that we're getting back aren't high level picks, aren't high enough level picks.
Yeah.
Versus Brooklyn, dude. Brooklyn has some nice picks. They have swap rights with both Phoenix and Philly, correct?
They have an outright Philly pick in like a year.
Oh, okay. And that's like those are so much more valuable. And it's like you can also get a flyer on a player like Ben Simmons that fits the need of the Blazers. And a lot of people are going to be iffy about that. But if you're getting Ben Simmons with a lot of high value picks and maybe another big like Clowney.
Yeah.
There's also Whitehead, the rookie. Isn't he a rookie or is he a second-year player?
Yeah, he's a rookie.
Rookie, yeah.
Because like it's really intriguing. Because like the problem is with Brooklyn though right now is they would have to redirect for the salary to work. They don't have those bad contracts on the books anymore.
Ben though
they traded them. They got Ben. Well, yeah, other than Ben.
Yeah,
because actually Ben could just
He's like 30. He's like 33, isn't he? 32. He's pretty, or 37.
37.
He's only 8 mil short, correct?
Yeah.
Isn't it 45 mil?
Let me look at. I gotta look at the contract. So, if Dame's contract's 45.
45. So he's 8.
It could literally be Ben Simmons and
2 rookies.
Spencer Dinwiddie.
Yeah. I don't want Spencer. I'd rather take.
Well, yeah, I mean,
rookies, but also
probably it would be one of the rookies. I mean, salary wise.
Yeah, because in terms of Brooklyn, you would want to get rid of the rookies probably if you want to win now.
Yeah,
and not all of them, but you want to.
Noah Clowney, Dariq Whitehead.
There's also Cam Thomas, and Cam Thomas would not play for the Blazers, but it's just value at that point.
Yeah.
So it's like if you're choosing young players, you gotta. You want to keep probably one
Darius
or two.
Darius Bazley signed with them? I didn't even know that.
I did not see that.
Here's a name.
They had Trent Watford.
Wilson Chandler
could be traded.
Wilson Chandler's on the Nets roster.
Okay. They also Claxton is a young player.
It's a cap hold.
They would want to keep Claxton, obviously, but there's a chance that he could be.
I think they would. I think Claxton might be like close to untouchable for them.
I kind of agree, but it's Damian Lillard at the same time. There's also Cam Johnson.
Yeah, I would.
But he's also a little older. I don't know if I'd invest in Cam Johnson on the Blazers.
Yeah. I don't know. I think it would be interesting. Well, I think that's all we got to really talk about overall. We'll be able to. We'll be having another episode next week out. Keep your eye out for the Mattias and Ryan 1v1 that'll be coming probably this weekend.
Yeah, tomorrow at noon.
Tomorrow afternoon. And keep your eye out also for some solo videos that'll be going through this week as well, or coming up. Check out Ryan's from earlier this week. He did an off-season tier list. And check out all the clips that we've got in our videos. If you just have a specific subject that you might want to look at instead of going back and watching the whole videos, go through those. Yeah. All right. Well, like I said, thanks for watching through on this episode. We had a good time talking about some different random players and schemes. So it was a good time.
Fun talk.
Of course. Yeah. Always is reminiscing. And then drop a like, sub. A lot of our viewers are non-subscribed viewers. I can see it in the analytics. So drop a subscribe, like, comment, all that good stuff. Check out our other videos on the channel, and peace out.
Peace.